Raphaël Melançon, of course. You know, he's an old hand here at CJAD 800, political analyst.
That's because of the gray hair.
He is a columnist for the Montreal Gazette. He's the president and founder of Trafalgar Strategies. And you're in studio. Hello,
As
Raphael.
always. Thank you, Trudie.
Yeah. Let's start by talking about what Donald Trump has said earlier today, that he must be involved in choosing the successor to Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. This comes on the 6th day of that Middle East war. Panic in Beirut, of course, and action well beyond Iran now. What do you make of Donald Trump saying that he needs to have a say, which I assume means he will be picking?
Yes, well, I mean, is this the 1950s all over again? Is this the time when the U.S. Used to overthrow regimes to replace them by dictators that were on their side? This is nonsense to me. There's only one people who can choose their next leader in Iran, and it's the Iranian people, period. There's no way the Americans should be or will be involved in picking the new leader of Iran. First of all, I'm happy that we are finally targeting the Iranian regime. I mean, these guys, the Ayatollah was a murderer, someone who murdered and jailed hundreds and thousands of his political opponents over the past decades. I have absolutely no sympathy for the regime of the mullahs. I'm glad we are finally tackling it because it was a threat to the entire region of the Middle East. And our strategic allies also in that region. But in the end, it's up to the people of Iran to basically finish the job, to overthrow that regime. There's a major succession plan in Iran right now. It's not because you cut the head of that regime that it's over. There's tons of people who are waiting in line to replace the Ayatollah as the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So it's up to the people of Iran to go down the streets, overthrow that regime, and replace it with, hopefully, fingers crossed here, a democratic regime. But let's not forget, this is a people that has absolutely no history of democracy in Iran. Prior to the Iranian Revolution, the Islamic Revolution in 1979, they had the Shah, and the Shah was also a dictator. It was one of the world's last monarchy where the monarch had full powers. And he was placed there by the Americans at the time. And because he made a deal with the Americans to sell them, the American and the British, to sell them oil. So they were keeping and supporting the Shah's regime at the time. And the Shah was overthrown by the revolution in Iran, and he was replaced by another dictatorship, another totalitarian regime. I'm sorry, it's a difficult word to pronounce for a Francophone. But yeah, so I mean, we need, of course, to support the Iranian people, but there's no guarantee at the moment that the regime that will be eventually potentially replacing the current regime will be a democratic one. If you look in the region, regimes that we helped overthrow over the past few years and decades, let's look at Libya, for instance. It's still chaos in Libya since Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown there. Look at Iraq. Look at even Venezuela. Just a few months ago, the Americans captured Nicolas Maduro, hoping that this would lead to a change in the regime. Well, his vice president is still leading the country, and there's no sign that this is going to change anytime soon. So yes, I'm all in for overthrowing that regime, but it's up to the Iranian people also to do their part, which is to go down the streets and make sure that they replace the regime of the mullahs. But we have no guarantees at the moment. It's destabilizing the whole region at the moment. It's costing us a lot. Oil prices are going up quite quickly. And in the end, what's going to come out of it? We have absolutely no guarantee at the moment.
I did think it was funny in a sad way that you had Donald Trump admitting that some attention had been paid to who might take over once the Ayatollah was dead, and the U.S. had some picks,
right?
Hopes they had, and unfortunately, number 2, number 3, number 4, they all died.
Right.
And, he threw that out as if it were a big joke. And I thought to myself, that's not very good planning, is it?
It's as if he's playing a video game here. And this is coming also, let's not forget, from a president who in the last election promised that there would be no more wars declared by the Americans. He would be a peacemaker, a unifier, a pacifier, and also that the U.S. should be stopping policing the entire world. Well, what is he doing right now? Policing Iran. So I'm all in for this. I mean, Iran, at last, we acted on Iran. It was a threat, a direct threat, not only to the Israelis, but also to the entire region, all our allies, Saudi Arabia, for instance. Iran was a threat to them as well. So it's a good thing that we get rid of the Ayatollah. Now, it's not up to the Americans, though, to choose who's going to lead Iran in the future. There's a people there, and if we want them to take charge of themselves in the future, we need to help them implement a democratic regime, but it's not up to Donald Trump to pick who's going to lead them.
Let's turn our attention to domestic matters. We have QC 125, some new projections. The PQ, were an election to happen today, would have a tough time coming in at a majority government. And we had that new Leger poll earlier in the week that had just 1 point between the PQ at 31 and the Liberals at 30. What are you making of this? Is the PQ floundering at this point?
Absolutely. And it's going nowhere right now for the PQ because it seems like, just let's go back just a week and a half ago, following their victory in the by-election in Chicoutimi, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon opened the door to postponing a third referendum on sovereignty until Donald Trump is no longer in office. So basically, he was admitting what a lot of Quebecers were already doubting, which is right now is not a good time to have a referendum on sovereignty. Right now is not the right time to talk about sovereignty. So people are looking for alternatives. And now that the Liberals have a new leader, they seem to be like an interesting refuge for many Quebecers, the majority of which do not want to have a referendum on sovereignty. So that's why we see those numbers. And those numbers, in politics, we're always looking for a trend. We have the Leger poll this week, but let's not forget that we also had a Palace data poll just last week showing a similar trend here. So the Liberals were only 3 points behind the PQ last week. Now they're 1 point behind the PQ. So it shows clearly we have a trend showing that the PQ is going down in voting intentions, and it's benefiting the Liberals at this moment. And you mentioned the new projections that came out just today, updated projections by our friend Philippe Giffournier at Québec 125. So the PQ would be, if there were an election today, the PQ would have 63 seats in the National Assembly. How many seats do you need to have a majority? 63. So if they lose just one more seat in the projections, they would be in a minority territory. If you want to have a third referendum on sovereignty, you need absolutely to have a majority, and I would say a strong majority in the National Assembly to do that. So it's really not looking good for the PQ at this point. Looking good, though, I would say, let's mention it because both polls are showing that the Quebec Conservatives are on the rise here in voting intentions. So 15% with the Palace data and the Leger poll this week. They're in third place in front of the CQ, which is now fourth behind the Quebec Conservatives. So it shows that Éric Duhaime's party is gaining some momentum in some regions of Quebec, and they could hope gaining some seats in the next election if everything goes well for them.
Let me pick your brain, though, about the CAQ. Do you see because I think the Leger poll earlier this week had them at what, 15, 16, so somewhere around it.
13,
way back. Yeah. Way back. Would that change once the leadership is settled, in your view? Could they stage a miraculous comeback?
Well, the Leger poll suggests that if the CQ, right now the CQ led by François Legault is at 13%. If it were led by Christine Fréchette, they would gain 2 more points, 15%, neck and neck with the Quebec Conservatives. It's no miracle here, but it could change quite quickly. As we have seen just 2-3 months ago, the PQ was way ahead in voting intentions in the last polls. So things have changed quite quickly for the PQ. I would say right now it's very volatile. everything can change. There's still 25% of undecided voters across the province. These people could go, well, of course, they could stay home and not head to the polls on election day, but they could also support another party. So right now, there's 1 in 4 Quebecers that are undecided whether they will support one party or another. So that's something that could maybe potentially change the situation for the CAQ. Let's say with Christine Fréchette, if she's elected as the new leader of the CAQ on April the 12th, if she makes good decisions, if she impresses voters across the province, that could change. Of course, that could change, but let's be realistic here. I think after 8 years in power, there's a fatigue also for the party. People want change, and it's hard. It's very tough. As we have seen in the last municipal election, even with a new leader, it's hard to fight a strong will for change among the population. So I would say right now it's looking much better for Charles Milliard and the Liberals at this point.
I wanted to ask that because I wondered if Christine Fréchette would be enough change for those people who are looking for change and are not entirely comfortable planting their vote with any of the other options.
Well, I would say you have to look at there's about 28% of PQ voters at the moment who do not want a referendum on sovereignty. That's some fertile ground for the CQ to get eventually, because it's hard. It's a long way for a PQ voter to potentially transfer to the Liberals, but they might be tempted to vote for a CQ soft nationalist approach with Christine Fréchette. So that's where maybe it could pay off for the CQ with a new leader to go and try and get those 1 in 4 PQ voters who are not interested about sovereignty, but who are only voting for the PQ right now because the CQ is no longer an alternative in their eyes.
Raphaël Melançon, thanks very much for your thoughts.
Trudie.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.